You have probably noticed the rapid growth of home coffee setups. Now the question is, which one is the right one for you? As a former barista, I have found the perfect solution without blowing thousands of euros. Now in this video, you might think that I'll give you the typical recommendations, but today we're talking about a specific machine that you might have never seen before. So here's what I ended up with. The Stone Lite, paired with the DF64V Grinder and add 3 more key accessories. Now with this specific setup, I was able to pull off everything that I did back in my barista days. The manual, probably not gonna use those too much. Ooh, I see the machine. It was transported upside down, by the way. I hope it's still intact. We got a little cleaning brush, absolutely terrible tamper. That's terrible, but I guess that's where they cut the costs. A single dose basket that I'm never gonna use. One of the baskets to back flush, but I definitely need to upgrade some things, even though I try to keep it as minimal as possible, not, getting into this gear addiction. Feels very good actually, it really feels solid. With this price range, I don't think you get anything better looking than this. So why the Stone Lite? As a home barista, you don't necessarily need bar pressure control, programmable pre-infusions, or even hot water supply. What you really need is fast heat up time, a solid build, delicious espresso, and some silky smooth milk. This one heats up in less than 10 minutes. In my tests, usually it was ready at around 7 minutes. Plus, it's compact. Perfect for my tiny Barcelona apartment. Oh, and one more thing. Usually this machine is around 1,000 euro, but I was able to find it for 886 euros. So don't give up hunting for a good deal on the web. I had my first encounter with mind-blowingly good coffee here at Chapter 1 back in April 2016. And my old boss took us here to Chapter 1, and I remember how the flat white was over 3 euro, and that was outrageous back then. But the moment the owner prepared the coffee, like measuring every single little thing, brewing it to perfection with meticulous care, and then pouring this insane latte art, I knew this one was different. And one thing that I personally just love is when people are extremely passionate and obsessed about what they do, and this guy for sure was that type of person. And I started diving deeper into the specialty coffee world, and I remember one vivid moment. One day I brought some pour-over coffee, prepared in these crappy Melita coffee pour-over filter things, brought them to university, and my classmate turned around and he was like, "Something smells extremely like blueberry in here." I couldn't wipe the grin off my face that a row in front of me noticed my coffee just through smell. And from there, it spiraled. A few years later, I landed a dream job at a major specialty roaster called Coffee Circle right behind me, and I was making coffee and creating content all day. It was a dream. And one big part of that job was to review home espresso machines. I remember playing around with many machines at that time at Coffee Circle, but one that I really liked was the Stone. Not only does it look phenomenal for its price point, it delivers great results, manufactured by one of the most iconic producers, Rocket in Italy. So why shouldn't you just pick another machine? The truth is, most of the recommendations are good enough for what we're trying to do as home baristas. But if you value great performance and a great design, then you will love this machine. I also talked to a bunch of my coffee nerd friends, and most of them actually own a Rocket Appartamento. It's a great machine, no doubt, but the question is if you really want to spend double the money of what the Stone Lite costs for a few extra features and also wait 20 plus minutes for it to heat up. Just saying. I also met the owner of one of the best brunch and coffee spots here in Barcelona, Roast Club. So now we're heading there to the little coffee shop called the Roast Club Paper Cup. And Iker also runs a coffee supply store selling machines and accessories. He also mentioned the typical recommendations for a good reason. The Rocket Appartamento, for example, Profitec Go, the Gacha, the Sage Barista Express. But he also said that I should take a look into the Stone because it's still quite underrated. So if you're fine with the regular recommendations, there's honestly not a lot you can criticize about them, except maybe the build quality or the looks. But before you pull the trigger on a machine in general, you should really budget 200 to 500 euro for a decent grinder. And before we dive into the real life tests of this machine, I quickly go into a side quest on why I've picked this specific grinder, the DF64V. One here, so this one one's gonna go out.
And you should really remember that it's almost impossible to pull a great espresso without a great grinder. So why did I pick the DF64V? I didn't aim for this kind of fancy flat burr grinder, but ended up finding this DF64 for a good deal. Flat burr grinders basically are more common in the high-end price ranges and produce more clarity. It's not a must, but it definitely elevates your coffee. Super nerd mode now, but you could even swap out the burrs if you want better burrs. I mean they're amazing, but you could go even crazier. It also makes delicious pour over coffee. It gives me a little bit more clarity than my C40 Comandante, which is already pretty great. But now the most important question is, can it make delicious espresso and also steam milk for latte art? My overall experience is that it's quite consistent in what it produces. It's probably also because I have this great DF64V grinder, which makes dialing in espresso very easy. Dialing in means that you can adjust the variables to have the espresso come out the way you want it to come out. You want to put 18 grams of coffee into your basket and pull 36 grams of espresso out. That's in a nutshell. And I've tried every single espresso that I've pulled with this machine, as you can see here, and after 1 or maximum 2 shots, it was dialed in. Now let's put the machine really on test together. So here's how I make espresso drinks with this setup. First of all, turn it on and wait a minimum of 7 minutes to heat up. I use an 18 gram dose, use a spritz of water to reduce the static in the grinder, into the DF64 or into my Comandante C40. Then I use this needle tool to loosen some clumps and tamp with a Normcore level tamper. Then I preheat the portafilter and pull the shot. If you follow the same process every single time, you're guaranteed to have delicious espresso. I have brewed plenty of different coffees with this setup, from light to medium, and I've even tried a dark roast on this setup, and it all works beautifully. But disclaimer on my side, I personally prefer light or maybe medium roasts with my coffee drinks. What I'm missing a tiny bit is a little bit of body. That means the mouthfeel is not as creamy and thick as on high-end machines. But honestly, I get all that I want from an espresso, which is intense sweetness and clarity. After more than 2 months with this setup, there's only a few minor things that I do not enjoy about the Stone Lite. So let's talk about it. First of all, some parts are not 100% aligned. So if you have OCD, this might bother you, but it does not hinder the functioning of this machine. Second of all, the drip tray. It's quite terrible, honestly. It's weird to get out unless you empty it fairly frequently, and you'll also make a big mess. I would say after 2 to 3 espressos with several flushings, etc., you need to empty it. Lastly, I don't love the plastic knobs. I don't think they're terrible, and honestly, they don't look that bad, but they're indeed not super nice to use.
I didn't expect to get this thing. I mean, it's it's the worst part about this overall machine. It also looks like it doesn't match the aesthetics, but I guess that's where we saved something, yeah?
Now let's get to the point that brought me a lot of headaches with this machine. Steaming milk is a tricky one, honestly. I've worked with many machines before and I struggled quite a bit with the Stone Lite in the beginning. When I used to work on big commercial machines back in the days as a barista, I was able to steam milk consistently well. But with the Stone Lite, I'm not gonna lie, it took me quite a few attempts. But then it finally clicked. So here are some tips specifically for the Stone. Pull a little bit more air than you would think. Because some tutorials say first you introduce 2 to 3 seconds of air with a hissing sound, and then you create a vortex for the milk to roll. But I would say it's more adding 4 to 5 seconds of air. I only steamed in a small pitcher and it heats up extremely fast, so you really don't have much time. You could technically use a big milk pitcher, but I prefer pouring flat whites instead of lattes. Therefore, I prefer smaller cups and smaller milk pitchers. Another tip is also that you could add the milk to the pitcher and then put it in the fridge, so the pitcher is a little colder when you start steaming, and therefore you have like a few more seconds time. The steam wand also has 2 steam holes, which is not very common, because most machines have 1, 3, or 4 holes. So you really need to figure out how to angle your pitcher correctly. For me personally, it works best to have the pitcher in my left hand and then tilt the wand slightly to the right. By the way, I'm right-handed. And in case you wonder how far you can push the latte art on this machine, well, I documented every single day since I got this machine, and here's what I was able to pour after a few weeks, and I think that's pretty good. I also made it pretty difficult to myself by not getting like a wider cup that is easier to pour latte art into, but why? I love to make it more difficult for myself. With that being said, if these minor things don't bother you at all, I personally think this machine is just a gem. After more than 2 months with the Stone Lite and the DF64V, there's not much more to add. This machine is still awesome, and if you pair it with a great grinder, I think you're in for a good time. If you want a small, clean setup that nails both the looks and performance, this combo is hard to beat. The Stone Lite gives you that prosumer espresso experience without jumping into a full-blown expensive machine. And the DF64V, it's compact, it's stepless, and will give you a super consistent extraction since day one. Are there more powerful machines out there? Sure, but at this price point, I think this really hits the sweet spot. I mean, this machine even allows you to pull shots when you're in a rush. If you're building a home espresso bar and you want gear that not only looks good but also performs well and doesn't require a mortgage, I would say this setup is seriously worth considering. I will link everything that I've talked about and some alternatives in the info box down below. Stay caffeinated, I'll see you in the next one.